as usual, feel free. It's a small group. There's only 6 of us. I don't know where Tony is. Tony's disappeared on us today. But we will just fire away any questions you have. Let me introduce, even though I don't think we need to introduce Will, but for those who are maybe watching the replay and for the off chance someone doesn't know Will in the Bay of Plenty, Will is the Hits local host. He is a marriage celebrant, by the way, very incredible in what he does. And he is, you read what you write in the paper, you're like everywhere, Will, right?
Look, no one's more sick of me than I am. Yeah, I'm all over the place. So yeah, the radio show, which is 9 till 3, which is the day show for the Hits. I was Paulina's celebrant, which is why she says I did an excellent job. And because, yeah, I kind of paid her to say that. And yeah, so I write in the paper and also just MC, lots of different things in the community. Yeah.
All right, awesome. So you are the perfect person to have a chat. Well, Locals Supporting Locals has been going for 12 weeks now. It's our 12th show. We basically jump in once live and just chat about what's going on in the business community. And I know, and that's why I wanted to pick your brain, but I know that Sally is trying to get in as well. We want to just know what's happening in the Bay of Plenty. Like I know there's some really cool locals initiatives going on, and who better to ask than you, right?
Yeah, I mean, well, we started this thing called Go Local, which is, for those who don't know, in terms of NZME, it's a bunch of radio stations, the Herald, which is the Bay of Plenty Times here. Sally!
Yay! We made it!
My apologies.
That's absolutely fine. I'm glad to have you here. Welcome.
And then, of course, my laptop decided to do a wee short update.
Cool.
Of course.
Yeah. Sorry about that. That was fun.
At least it was a short one, not one of those IT ones, where it takes like 45 minutes to...
I know. Well, it suddenly said it was doing an automatic update. I was like, here we go. This will be good.
Cool.
All right, back to you, Will, for a second. So
NZME, like radio stations, papers, grab one, and obviously involved in quite a few events. So we started a thing called Go Local, which is a bit of an integration, amalgamation of all of our assets, just trying to just shine a light on stuff that's happening locally, probably more business focused, but also community events focused, that doesn't involve money. It doesn't involve, because us doing well as a company and us pushing those kind of businesses and those kind of things, in the end, will hopefully stand us good in the community. More people will listen, more people will read, and more of those people that we kind of manage to shine a light on over a tough time, when they get to a time that's not a tough time and they feel like advertising is something they want to get into, then, maybe they'll look upon us as a way to do that because it worked for them in the Go Local campaign. And if they don't, that's completely fine. It's just actually trying to, get a message out there. So the Go Local thing was not necessarily just free advertising, like tell us what business you've got and we'll push it. But we did do a little of that on the radio because that's easy to do. That's just a minute's long plug for someone's business. But it was more highlighting people who were doing something maybe a little bit creative. The odd person who created an app that tells you how long your coffee wait time is when you've ordered it online. The hairdressing salons that started putting out kind of content of just funny stuff from home, and them doing like horrendous examples of how people have cut hair really badly at home. Just highlighting those businesses that are doing something a little bit different, to try and get them a bit of publicity. And when everything came out of lockdown, kind of people hopefully will go back to them.
Perfect. So you did this during the lockdown only, or are you still running the campaign, or how does it work?
Still running it now. So I can't remember the last one. What was one of the latest ones that we did? Yeah, look, there were companies that over lockdown were making kind of giant board games, so like a fabric printing company that was making giant board games and all that kind of stuff. But now it's more like, because events are like new and bright and shiny now that we can actually go back to actually hanging out in the same space without restrictions. So now, I guess kind of creative new events are what we're focusing on a little bit with the Go Local side of things. Yeah, but we're still dealing with, like, we had a business, Mainstreet Tauranga, came to us and went, we want to do a jacket and a polar fleece and a beanie branded with someone's logo that you think needs it over the cold winter months. And we just put that on our Facebook page, branded it Go Local, got people to tag, you know, who they thought needed it, and just picked somebody. And that, I mean, that reached about 5,000 odd people on Facebook just doing a simple post like that. That's great for them. We didn't charge them for it. But once things go back to normal, I know that they're a client of ours and I'm sure they'll spend again at some point.
So, well, tell me, how can people get involved in this? How do you find the businesses, or do the businesses find you, or how does it work?
A little of both. Like you can kind of get in touch. We're going to create a dedicated email address, but we were kind of like, well, I mean, people, like, our business is people getting in touch with us anyway. So if people are emailing me, if people are getting in touch with me on Facebook, people get in touch with the Bay of Plenty Times, if they're talking to any of our sales reps, like just any stream that you can get in touch with, any NZME, if you ask about the Go Local thing that we're doing, that will immediately get it kind of put through to the people who are able to help you. Like, we've got a couple of dedicated journalists who are doing all the Go Local stuff for the Bay of Plenty Times. Me and Brian Kelly, who does the Coast Breakfast Show, are doing the Go Local stuff for the radio. You know, so it's just about just getting in touch with us and going, hey, we need a hand. We could do with a bit of a free plug. Here's something different we're doing.
So, well, it's all about promoting, right? So Go Local campaign is promoting the business, nothing else to it. Like, there's no product, there's no event to it. It's just a promotion, right?
Yeah, I mean, look, we tried to keep it as broad as possible. So usually it's just promoting that business and kind of giving it a wee bit of a plug. But as I say, like, if they've got something to give away, I mean, that works for us as well, because we're a radio station. We want people to listen. We want to provide good content. You want to be part of a community. And if you can do that by giving away something free via somebody else, that works really well for us. I mean, that's quite good content. You know, I can call somebody back and tell them they've won something. We get a good reaction on air, and that kind of makes us more relatable to our community. Like, that's kind of works for everybody.
I love the fact that you guys are putting it out there for the locals, but also like really plugging the local community. It's not just we want advertising, or, you know, you need to pay this, but like giving back to the community. So tell me, what is like the coolest thing through the Go Local campaign you've experienced, where you would like, this is a highlight?
I quite like the people who, so what I did for a while for Go Local is I just said, literally, if you want me to say anything about your business on the radio, just send me an email. And, you know, that went all right for a wee while. And then, you know, again, through Facebook and all that kind of stuff. And one of my favorite ones that came through was the guy out in Te Puke. I think he owns one of the appliance stores out in Te Puke. And he had started essentially making or sourcing the like the PPE protective masks, like it was sort of he was doing that. And so instead of selling the whiteware that he's usually selling, like, the guy was doing this roaring trade, being able to somehow get his hands on these. I think they were New Zealand made. I didn't even ask him really where they came from, but these PPE masks, and he was just adding a smidge on top, like probably enough to cover his costs and then another couple of bucks. And yeah, like, but my favorite part of that entire thing is that I had a wee yarn with the guy off air and had a chat, and I was like, yep, cool. So we're going to do this. It's going to be pre-recorded, and, you know, I'll edit it up and I'll put it on air and all that kind of stuff. And as soon as I started pre-recording it, he turned into like this weird mix of someone who's like a sales floor salesperson, like he is, but also someone who was just shitting themselves nervous. It was great. And if he sees this, I applaud you. It was so good. It was so unique. I loved it.
That's awesome. Fantastic. Thank you, Will. So, Sally, over to you. Sally, you're obviously one of the, you're probably one of the longest standing marketing agencies in Tauranga, wouldn't you be?
There's a few around, but yeah, yes, we have been here a wee while. I'm only 22, surprising, because I started when I was 1.
I love
Yes.
this.
Yes,
But
we have been here a long time.
And you have been on Devonport Road for a very long time. So you're downtown Tauranga, and I believe you're also the part of the downtown Tauranga board. Is that correct?
So Mainstreet Tauranga, there are 3 main streets across the city: Mainstreet Tauranga, Greerton and Mt, and Mainstreet Tauranga Tuskany also has the management and marketing contract. So we're not on the board, we report to the board, but we look after the management and marketing of Main Street downtown Tauranga as well. So
Oh yeah, fabulous. So you guys have an amazing campaign coming as well, or going at the moment as well, don't you?
yeah, so ours was really born out of the, there's some amazing campaigns in the Go Local campaign. Hats off to you guys. That's great. Through the medias, and then of course Tourism Bay Plenty have done a beautiful video and campaign of No Place Like Home, and just really getting residents to reconnect with the beautiful region that we live in. But we very much, with our Tuskany hat on, but also with our Main Street hat on, needed a campaign that was directed at SMEs, purely and simply, and it started initially as a campaign for Main Street Tauranga, but then I basically had wanted for years to create even more collaboration across the main streets, because let's be honest, as residents, we do shop across our city. On any given day, you might pop into Blomquist and Greerton and grab some bread, and then you might stop at Love Rosie's on the way back through and grab a coffee, and then you might go to Books of Plenty in downtown Tauranga, and then you might buzz across to Sisters at the Mount and do that. And so what we
Is that what your normal day looks like, does it?
As I was saying that, I was thinking, God, that sounds like a really good day.
That's what my normal day looks like.
I like it. So
Yeah.
especially Shop and Sisters, right? You find all your clothing there. Jill.
Wouldn't you just
Happy wife, happy life.
Yeah.
That's right. You're already practicing, are you, for when
Yeah.
you're married? Gotcha.
Yeah.
Nice, I like it. Okay, back to you, Sally. Sorry.
Oh, that's all right. And so we wanted to very much, obviously, had been working for a while actually on a campaign, as I say, for Main Street Tauranga, very much a buy local one. And then with COVID, we're like, okay, but let's extend it right out. So pulled the 3 main streets together, which has been a really fantastic working platform, with Sally Benning in Greerton and Mandy Gilburn at the Mount, and our Main Street team here. But I pretty much led the campaign through. And yeah, it's very much focused on acknowledging that people shop across the city, but also wanting people to encourage to buy local. But it's been very much about, and I've talked about it a lot really, just the human face of COVID, for example, and that, yes, we want to promote go local, or buy local, sorry, in our case, but very much about, we know each other, and we're human beings are very social. And so you love going into the coffee shop where Joe knows your name, or, different people, Riddell at Sisters, or if you don't shop there or whatever, but everyone knows different business owners around the city. And SMEs are the backbone of our economy across the country, let alone across the bay. So we wanted to really pick up on the fact that there is a human face to it, that if you do shop locally, then that business owner can feed their family, they can pay their staff, they can pay their suppliers, they can pay their rent, they can service their mortgages. They can then in turn walk out the door and shop with another business, or give to local charities, or support their local kids' sports teams and things like that. And so we very much wanted to make the connection of, the guy you see on the street that owns such and such a shop is probably one of your neighbours or something like that. So buy local, buy Tauranga as a strategy was based on that. And so we needed the faces to be a voice of our SMEs, so hence the billboards and the press ads and things like that, which are very much about showcasing the people and their product, so that we get that, playing on Jacinda's comment of we're all in this together. It's very much a human campaign.
I love the fact I learned that there is a bike shop in Greerton. I think it's the only bike shop in Tauranga and the Bay of Plenty I do not know.
Yeah.
There's a bike, and I was like, there is a bike shop in Greerton. I did not know this. So
Yeah.
My husband's going to be really proud. He'd be like, oh, I've learned something new today, honey.
Absolutely. And there's some of that as well, that you just don't know these hidden pockets. I mean, because the campaign's got a huge mix of medias, from radio to newspaper to print to billboards to the videos that we did, and all sorts of things. And in shooting the videos, exactly that happened too. And that I didn't know there was a bike shop in Greerton. I certainly didn't know a number of the businesses tucked away in different pockets. The same with the Mount and downtown Tauranga. I know where everything is, but it's been a nice journey of discovery, hopefully, for those that have been exposed to the campaign of actually going, I didn't realise those businesses were there. We have extended it as well in that, we're looking at other versions of it for other sectors, and we've had people from outside of the main streets contacting us saying, hey, can we be a part of it? And it's like, absolutely, you can. And
Yes,
people,
that's exactly. I had a question about this exactly. Like, we're promoting the retail and everything, but I think there are a lot of other businesses, and would be awesome. I don't know if there's budget for it, but would be awesome to highlight other businesses as well. So, do you think that is on the cards? And also another question around how long is that campaign going to go? Because I think it will be absolutely fantastic to just carry on, have this pace for as long as possible, and just highlight the local businesses and just get the economy going.
Absolutely. So the campaign was put together so that it would launch exactly when we went from level 3 to level 2, where people were slightly eased up on restrictions. And it is a campaign for SMEs, whether you're in the retail, service, commercial, tourism, Māori business, any sector. It's not exclusive just to retail. Obviously, the launch campaign and ads, etc., had a fair whack of that because we were trying to support across the main streets our hospitality sector that were trading at that stage with cafes and restaurants and things. But it's for all. And, like we're doing, as part of the campaign, we're doing profiles on people in commercial businesses, the service sector, all of those sorts of things, so that we can cut right across the SME territory, basically. In terms of the length of the campaign, obviously we wanted to go really hard and really fast for the first 6 weeks. So from May the 9th or 10th or whatever date it was that we went to level 2, we launched it and have gone hard with it. But it runs with a really strong, high impact campaign through till the end of June, and then carries on and continues to evolve, so that what we don't want is the campaign to get tired. So it keeps evolving and it keeps changing. And also, most importantly, because I believe that at the moment a lot of people are operating on adrenaline, so they're out of lockdown, and there is some buoyancy in the market at the moment. It will suffer. We're going into winter, the wage subsidies will stop. We know from Main Street's perspective it's going to get much harder, and it's going to be a long, tough haul. So we need our campaign to have longevity through that. We don't want a 6-week campaign that everyone goes, that was great, see you, bye, we're out of here. Obviously we're restricted by funding. We only have limited funds, but that's also why we collaborated with the other main streets for the first time to actually put a campaign together where all 3 main streets were contributing but still being true to their own memberships, because you've got to be careful that you look after your own members as well. So it's just about making sure that we've got the resourcing, but we will have, to continue that campaign through. And in terms of broadening it as well, we're talking with other stakeholders to say, look, if you want to do like Tourism Bay Plenty, would you like to do one specific to tourism, etc.? We'd love to do it under that platform. You just need to collaborate with us to help us do it, because we, as Main Street, we can't afford to fund every situation known to man, because we've got such limited budgets. But anything we can do, I'm a business owner myself, but I do a lot of work around that regional growth with Priority One and other organisations in terms of we need to support our business community like never before.
Yeah.
Lily, how do small businesses get involved or be part of this? Like how, from a support perspective, but also from an involvement and being part of the campaign, what do they do?
So 2 really core things. Sharing the videos and sharing the messaging of buy local, buy Tauranga is really, really important. Hence, the whole slogan is not just buy local, but it's buy Tauranga, so that, because local can be across New Zealand, and that's fine, we accept that, but we want localised spend. So, anybody, any business can really help promote that and do shout outs to other business owners that they know, etc. If you're a Main Street member, we keep communicating to our 3 different Main Streets that we try and go to everybody, but across the 3 Main Streets, we've got over 1,000 businesses. So it's not doable to get to every single business and say, can we profile you? We simply don't have the resources, but some have come to us, we've gone to them, and we just keep saying, if you're a Main Street member, just come to us and we'll profile you. But it's really neat, like other organisations like Priority One do their newsletter, and they've come to us and said, look, we'd love to just profile under your Go Local, Go Tauranga banner some service businesses and highlight how they've evolved through COVID, etc. And so we go and get that information from businesses and feed it back through to Priority One so that we can do it. And so through the different networks, it's been really good. Creative Bay of Plenty, Tourism Bay of Plenty, Priority One, the Chamber, etc. Everyone just working together to keep sharing that message and get as many people involved as we can.
Okay, so perfect, thank you. So Sally and Will, question for you. You've been obviously talking to lots and lots of different business owners throughout the last few weeks through those campaigns. What's the landscape, what's the feel out there between business owners?
From Mainstreet's perspective, COVID-19, I mean, from the city centre's perspective, we went in very fragile anyway. The city centre was in a very, very fragile state, and now it's in an even more stressed state. So it was actually really emotionally taxing for the Mainstreet team, for Millie and for myself and a couple of us on the team, trying to support the businesses through, because they were struck bare basically. And it's, you know, the mental health issues around COVID shouldn't be underestimated. You know, we saw businesses just, you know, one, initially, do I even bother carrying on? I'm in so much trouble, it's not funny. What can I do? How can I evolve? Is it worth it? I haven't got the energy. So there was a lot of that going on. So we had to do, hence we did a whole lot of Zoom webinars and things like that to try and build up their resilience. There is, and Will be able to talk to this as well, but and may have a different perspective. We see a lot of confidence at the moment. That's what I was talking about, the adrenaline before. And I read a really interesting article the other day, and I think it really was true too, in that at the moment, I mean, I know myself as a business owner, I will survive. But 2 o'clock in the morning, when you are up against it, when, you know, how are you going to get through, what are you going to do about wage subsidies, etc., it is really, really hard. And it's really hard for our business owners who are operating at the moment on adrenaline because they've been suddenly given an opportunity to scramble back. But as any psychologist will tell you, adrenaline turns into fatigue because adrenaline only lasts for so long. So when the wage subsidy stops, or you can't get the 40% wage subsidy, it's the thick of winter, disposable income isn't what it is, I think we're going to see a lot more stress bubble back up to the surface. And so it's kind of, how do you manage that as well? How do we look after our community? Because, you know, our campaign is very much about buy local, buy Tauranga, but I'm also very acutely aware and trying to do some initiatives across the main streets of actually how do we care for our business owners, because, you know, it is unprecedented. And I know that word's been used far too many times, but this is a concern from a mental.
It's almost like pivoting. It's also one of those fancy words,
yeah.
Right?
But and it's one thing that is kind of forgotten, not forgotten, but no one likes to talk about it. And, you know, but yes, there is some hard times ahead, if not already, for a lot of business owners who just need some resilience to get through and know they're not. And that was the other reason we did the campaign, because there's nothing worse than feeling like you're the only one going through this as badly as you are, even though everyone's going through it. So it's just like, how can we build a stronger community? And, you know, Will and Co at Radio are live and breathe doing that. That whole community spirit, I think, is so critical at the moment, that when you're having a really bad day and you don't know whether you're going to lose your job, retain your job, or save your business, just knowing that you're part of a community who give a shit is can help. And it's really, really, really important.
And I think you pretty much summed up what locals supporting locals is actually about, because that's why we kickstarted it, right? 12 weeks ago, we went in and said, okay, how can we get all the experts in Tauranga or in the Bay of Plenty to help the business owners and small business owners in Tauranga? And people like Tim and Catherine, like Tim, I think you've been on every single one of them, haven't you? Pretty much, or you might have missed one. You missed one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
How dare you, Tim? How dare you?
Yeah,
I
know,
think
okay.
Will should have something to say around this, but because we're saying buy local, buy Tauranga, but also some of the work we've been doing is sometimes it's not about buying anything. Sometimes it's just about walking into your favourite cafe and just saying, "Are you okay?" No, really, are you okay?
Yeah.
Not a colloquial Kiwi of "Are you okay?"
And honestly, like extending past that is actually just like checking on friends and people you kind of know, you know. I mean, like from a slightly bigger business side of things, obviously there were redundancies through the media and all that kind of stuff, and for bigger business throughout the country, of which there is a lot here as well, and some of those bigger businesses support some of the smaller businesses and vice versa. You know, there's people kind of who have lost their jobs, who will lose their job, who have taken a pay cut, who have all that kind of stuff. And like, I guess you, if it hasn't directly happened to you, then you almost forget, and it's not necessarily right in your face all of the time as well. So, you know, and then all this other stuff is going on. Like I talked to a lady on air the other day who not only has lost her job because she was working in a small business, but the reason that she lost her job is because she was immunocompromised because she's going through breast cancer at the moment. Do you know what I mean? So like, there's all this stuff that's going on in normal world that normally happens that isn't great, and heading into winter, and this, and so there's all those things. And like for me, it became more than about business, like as Sally was alluding to. It was more about actually going and catching up with some people now that you can, and checking if they're all right. And you know, it can be as simple as buying a coffee from your local and going and taking them a coffee and going for a walk. Like, it's as simple as that, because if they're, and like it's, I guess, an extension of the radio side of things, because, you know, sometimes I honestly, sometimes I forget that people listen to the radio station that I'm on, like, because I'm literally a dude in a padded room talking to himself, and then every now and then people connect, and you're like, well, I might be the only person that they connect with or interact with that day, especially if they've just gone through something like losing their job, or their partner has lost their job, because it's just as hard for, even if you've kept your job and your partner's lost your job, maybe your household income's halved, you're supporting them and you're trying to still do your job or whatever, you know, like there's so many different angles to it. And that adrenaline, you're right, does turn to fatigue, and I think it's going to turn to fatigue in two kind of waves is the way that I look at it. Like from what I see for COVID at the moment and how it's impacted businesses, is that there are some, when the COVID lockdown happened and subsequently the money tap just essentially got turned off, the business went under, maybe you got made redundant, like all of that stuff has happened, and it's done, and it's horrible and it's terrible. And then the other wave is when's the next bit of that happening? Do you know what I mean? So and like going back to what we were talking a little bit earlier on, is that I don't think people realize at this stage how important local business will actually be, because it is gonna get harder and harder to get things from an overseas source. You know, I mean, if you look at the US, it's not going backwards with its cases at the moment. What do they just tick over 2 million cases in the US? Like there's, if you, depending on who you listen to, I mean, there's a potential for the US dollar to become worthless at some point. Do you know what I mean? So it's kind of going back to like really, what is it, almost kind of, I hate to use this reference, but like wartime New Zealand, when what you did was everything local, because that was the only option. So if people were to think about it like that, if people were to go, well, my only option is New Zealand, what do I usually get that's from overseas? Can I afford the extra couple of bucks that it is to go and buy that New Zealand made? Because that's the natural thing that people will do, right? Like, we can talk about go local as much as you want, but a family that's kind of on a borderline is going to go, well, I can get this from somewhere bigger or from overseas, and it's going to cost me $10, and if I buy local, it's going to cost me 15. So that's what they will look at, because empathy will only take you so far, right? And money is money. So it's about, I guess, trying to get that $15 maybe a smidge down, and them trying to come up a little bit and sort of meet halfway. And how you do that through these go local campaigns, and it's great to highlight the business is there, but at the same time, people want deals. People
Yes.
want a reason to go in there. People want something creative that they're going to be able to get some social media content out of, or, you know, so it's about those businesses, even though they're struggling, maybe lowering a price a touch and getting creative.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's almost like some kind of adjustment had to happen and has to happen as well. And it's yeah, and our New Zealand business owners or whoever produce something, they have to kind of lower their expectation, I guess, what Will was saying, and just kind of be realistic about it. Just put it on our local market and make sure that our people can actually purchase it in those cases. But I think also
And we are seeing a lot of that.
yeah.
You
But I
also,
also feel like there is a kind of a flip situation can happen in the way of our entrepreneurs here. They can actually come up and say, well, okay, US product has gone away. Maybe I can recreate something here. So there are opportunities also as well. And it's almost like not just go local, buy local, but also what I want to scream out, just get creative and yeah, get yourself out of the you know, maybe sadness and try to kind of come up with some ideas, dreams, whatever it is.
by
Because
the date box factory.
yeah,
Will,
yeah,
do,
the
Will,
opportunity
do I have a business for you to highlight? That is like, just going to shout it out here. It's called the Date Box Factory. Interesting story. The girl worked for
travel agency.
travel agency, House of Travel, and made redundant due to COVID-19. And she had this idea of creating what is a South African product, but it's like creating this date box where you get this mystery box. You don't know what's in it. The man of the house, or you know, your partner gets an email saying what you need to prepare, and then it comes up with like all sorts of games and things to do in that box, and it gets delivered home. She said and it literally it came overnight. She was like, I've been thinking about this. They made her redundant. The next day she rang me. She's like, what do you think about this? And like 4 hours later, the business was launched and she's running with it. It's just been the most, and it's funny because I've been watching the network I've been around who have had the box, and everyone, when they think about the date box, everyone has a smile on their face. So here you go. You want something special for your wife to be? Well,
that's great. What's the address? Where do I find it? How do I?
It's called the dateboxfactory.co.nz.
Cool, awesome.
Go and have a look.
I'll go and have a look at that. And that's the kind of stuff that is important, because you know what, even if that only has a short lifespan, what it will do is it'll create a following, and there's no reason that can't be turned into something more, or new products added to it, or changed, or collabed with a different business that's also looking at doing something creative. So it's about, and that's the tough thing from what I see, is that you create something new, but you're not going to see the effects of that, and you're not going to see it maybe make some profit or get to that point it needs to be for a wee while. It's about how long you can hold on until it does start making a profit.
Yeah, I also think it depends on, you know, like the idea itself, like what's the problem you're solving for a customer, right? Like, and I mean, date night is I think every couple in Tauranga has experienced at some point that they want something new or exciting for their date night, right? So if you even think about that, but it's been a really nice experience, idea which popped out of COVID-19. Right. So there's plenty of good stories as well. But what I wanted to ask you guys is, do you think? I mean, we've had this idea of buy local, go local, right? And we find that people now have to find this buying decision. Do I go to something bigger, America, you know, cheaper? Do I go to Kmart, or do I go to a local fashion store, or whatever you want to call it, right? Do you think there needs to be more education done around why buy local? Not just like, and why, because, you know, like you said, sometimes it's here, it's like I had this conversation with a friend. She's like, where do I buy sports shoes? And I said to her, well, you could go to Rebel Sports, or you could go to Smith Sports Shoes. The fact is, the price difference is like $80–90, right? Now, with someone who is affected by the COVID-19 redundancy packages, etc., $90 can be significant. So, do you think there needs to be an education of making the right buying decision for the buyers?
Yeah, I mean, the thing though that you're treading into there is kind of getting into people's business models, right? In terms of how they're gonna do that. And like what I would say, just take it a step back as well, is yeah, look, we do want to buy local, but there's I always look at the big business that's in Tauranga and how much that can actually feed the community as well. You know, like people work there from our community. They do sometimes kind of, you know, pump money into events and community things and all that kind of stuff. So there is obviously there's, you know, don't get me wrong, like I'm not saying that, you know, those bigger chains should go and all that kind of stuff, but yeah, I guess it's what I was talking about before, like there has to be, and when it comes down to it, and if I think of myself as you know, mum and dad and the kids and things are a little bit tough, there's only so much buy local, being a part of a community spirit takes me till I go, I can't afford that.
Yeah.
So, and that's, I mean, it's a harsh reality. It is what it is. Any business owner in the Bay of Plenty, I'm sure, knows that. And so it means that they've almost got to take a double hit to continue to operate over a tough time and hope they come out the other end kind of okay, right? So like, you know, using that model of shoes, if it's, you know, can that difference be $40 or $50 instead of 90? Because then maybe that's you know, or is it 90? It costs me $90, but then I get something else free, or then I get a voucher for my next pair of shoes to be half price. You know, like it's something.
Yeah.
Something needs to entice me in there that's a real bottom line monetary figure.
Yeah. So for both of you, because you both come from an advertising perspective, two different types of marketing advertising, but what do you think for small businesses? When do they think they should reconvene advertising, or should they, or how, if you had a business owner in front of you, say me in front of you, what would you say to me now post COVID-19 in level 1 around advertising, and where's it going to get me through the recession? What's your process?
We were working with businesses through level 4, 3, 2 and 1 in terms of most businesses haven't kind of waited till level 1 to do anything. Most businesses were really good businesses, pivoted really quickly during lockdown and worked out that they needed to retain a relationship, because at the end of the day, business is about having a relationship with your clients or customers, and the advertising is just the way that you communicate to the new prospective people to keep them in and help with that. So they were very active in terms of, and digital was obviously really pivotal through the lockdown, whether it was digital, online, social media, or radio can help with that as well, which is great, which is why it was so hard on the newspapers, etc., and that you could keep good contact with your clients and customers really actively and building up that relationship. So the hard thing you've got at the moment is they can't afford to advertise, but they need to advertise because their revenues have been so severely impacted. But a lot of that is about being really savvy with it, making sure that they get really good advice, making sure that they use known and effective mediums to get their message across, and not trying to, you know, have unreasonable expectations, and also using their money, you know, really, really wisely. But also the other key thing is, yes, being competitive. So making sure that you aren't outpriced. And I think there's a lot of businesses who have been very clever about that, or not clever, they've been forced into a corner and realized, well, they're just going to have to reduce their costings down or do things differently so that they are more competitive, because the disposable income isn't there. But also, as I always recommend to people, it's about the experience. So now more than ever, it shouldn't just be a case of walking into a shop with a grumpy shop assistant saying, what do you want? Or trying to close the door at 10 to 5 or anything like that. You know, we want to encourage people to look after businesses so they, you know, some people talk about how, you know, shops will close and everything will happen always online. You know, we're human beings, we're social animals. It wasn't called retail therapy for no apparent reason. And the therapy side of it is the social contact that you get when you go into the cafe or the clothing shop or the shoe shop or the lawyers or the doctors, or, you know, how's it going? How are you? Except, you know, we're human beings, so we have human contact. So, but it's making sure that experience is unique and different and really valuable as well, and making sure those business owners, hard as it is, don't show too much of their heart on the sleeve. You know, we don't want to go into an angst-ridden business because people run away from that sort of thing. But we do want to go into a business that really is so very delighted to see you that they'll do whatever they can to make it a really good experience.
Look, I actually, and in Tauranga as well, just off Main Street, CBK, who I'm sure you've dealt a wee bit with, Sally, of course. Billy, who owns CBK, and to speak a little more on what you're talking about, Sally, and like the creative side of things when it comes to getting your message out there, a little bit can go a long way. So there was, you would have maybe seen the thing that went viral from CBK where they were doing online orders. And look, I'm imagining it was going pretty slowly over the COVID lockdown for a lot of people who were doing online orders for that kind of a thing. But when it got to a point where they could deliver some things, there was a lady in the Gold Coast who wanted lunch or something along those kind of lines ordered and delivered to her mother that lived in Tauranga for her birthday, because she couldn't be there for her birthday, couldn't travel. So she ordered online at CBK, put a little message in there saying it's my mum's birthday, gutted I can't be there, all that kind of stuff. Billy from CBK saw that, was at the supermarket that morning or that afternoon, bought a real cheap bunch of flowers. I think he bought a cheap bunch of flowers and some chocolates and a card, like a king-size block of chocolate and a card. So like it cost him $10, $15, I think, all up in terms of what he actually did. Went and delivered the lady's lunch, gave her that, like hand wrote in the card like a message as if it was from the lady's daughter, and handed it over. This lady in the Gold Coast then wrote a big thing about CBK, posted it online, and it went viral. So you got a bunch of free advertising essentially for $15 and a little bit of extra effort. Yeah. So that kind of thing more than ever will get picked up by media. It will get recognized on social media, and the word of mouth from that will be much better than any advertising that you could ever pay for.
That's exactly right. It's all the add-on stuff that you can do.
Yeah, and it doesn't cost you a lot except for your time. And do you know what? He'll be able to write off at least half of that, I imagine, in terms of claiming at some point later on down the track for tax and all that kind of business and all that kind of a thing. So, you know what? Let's say it cost him $750 to probably get social media wise, if he was trying to get that reach and us talking about it on the radio and other things, more than $1,000 worth of advertising.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's the same thing that's been really interesting. When we were in level 4, Bethlehem Butchery put out a post saying, hey, we deliver now, and they did like within like I think like 24 hours they had 20,000 people on this post talking about, you know, thank God that you guys are back, and they've been busier than ever from online deliveries, but now in the shop as well, because people are like, we're sick of the supermarket food, we have missed you. And everyone's just jumped on the bandwagon. It's just been fantastic. It's been phenomenal. But 20,000 people reached within 24 hours.
And do you know what? Like, just thinking off the top of my head in terms of those kind of smaller places, like a butchery or like a cafe or whatever, what's to stop them going on a few of the local Facebook pages, like you guys have, and all that kind of stuff, and their own Facebook page, and going, like, let's say it's a cafe. Why don't we go, okay, why don't you tag a mate that you would like to have free coffee for a week with at our business? So essentially, what's that's going to cost them? That's going to cost them 10 coffees, right? What's the markup on their coffees? Probably quite a lot. So actual money that it's going to cost them is probably not a lot. That coffee's maybe already bought anyway. You're going to get hundreds of people tagging on that. Free coffee for a week with a mate, like that's easy, right? Free eye fillet from a but like just give some stuff away for free, put it on social media, tag some friends in. It's so simple, but there's nowhere near enough businesses doing it. Tell us about it, and we'll tell people that that's happening. I'll mention that on the radio.
Absolutely, and I think that's I think that's the big thing, right? Like with Bethlehem Butchery, they've not only gone, like, I think what I loved about their story and going viral, they did that they sent out 3 months worth of meat boxes, weekly meat boxes to a family, which was really cool. They do all sorts of different takeaways, but what I loved about their story is they're not only supporting the community, they have an excellent reputation in the community, right? Like people are just Bethlehem Butchery is known for not only good food but also good service. But then they also help the community. So there's been a lot of people who approach them and say, "Hey, we want a raffle of one of your meat boxes, or can we have this?" And they're just in it doing it, right? So they're known, and I think that's what it comes back to what Sally said. They are known for that smile, for that community spirit, for that value of customer service. That when you go in there, it's something special. It's not just a grumpy person behind saying, "What do you want?"
And the thing that I realized over this lockdown as well, even more so, I realized it when I first moved here, like 8 or 9 years ago, but definitely more over this lockdown as well, is that Tauranga is still old school, you know, in that way, where there are so many people that are still going to their butcher, have like a personal relationship with their butcher. I mean, who has a personal relationship with their butcher in Auckland and Wellington? Like no one, right? So in Tauranga, all of those small operators, you know, your florists and all of that kind of stuff, people know them personally. So that I think actually stands us in good stead to get through this maybe quicker than others, because there is that personal thing that people are like, well, I could go buy this at a big chain, but I do know Steph, the florist, and I would like to get, you know, my auntie a cheap bunch of flowers. Maybe she could do me a deal.
Yeah.
Well, you have
Absolutely.
that. Just touching on that, it's exactly correct, because like I go to the Good Local, I walk in there and they get, like, you have Paul and Mark going to me when I walk in. They go, "Hey Tim," and then they're like, "Oh, right, okay."
Yeah.
You have to, you've got that relationship, and it's like it's the same thing with getting your coffees, like down at Maud, for example. Like I walk in there because I live in the lake, so I go to Maud and like I know the guys down there and walk in. "Tim, you're going to have your usual?" "Yep." "Go. Are you sure we can't entice you with caramel?" "Go. Yep, I'm sure." But it is like it's a good thing. Like me being Australian, like, and growing up in sort of outside on the outskirts of Sydney and growing up in the regional areas, it used to be that way. Like you'd walk, like I grew up in the Southern Highlands of New South Wales, so if anyone's into cricket, it's basically where Don Bradman was. And it used to, when I was growing up, it was like that. But now, like all the Sydney-siders have made it their own little tax haven, pretty much. And they've got all the boutique stores and everything else. And it's like, no one gives you the time of day at all.
Yep. And
I try to explain to my friends back home, and I was like going, like, Tauranga is very much like what the Gold Coast was about 30 years ago.
Yeah.
It's still sort of like this little enclave that's rapidly growing, and we will become something that will basically be able to rival the likes of the Gold Coast, because we've got, like, literally you go like 10 minutes down the road and you're into country. You go the other way, you're right on the beach. And you've got that bustling metropolis that's starting to happen. And it's actually a really, really good thing.
Yeah, I think so. And like, as Sally said as well, like, and you're saying, Tim, like, customer service is never more important than right now.
Yeah, just making people feel special, you know, wanted, appreciated.
Well, that's the thing. Like, people remember that, like, and then go, "Oh, that person actually took real good care." Like I was dealing with a client yesterday who, she put a post up on the Lakes page, on the Lakes community page, asking for a computer technician. So I sent her a message and said, "Look, yeah, I'll come around." And she was explaining to me, like, she'd gone to one of the retailers, and they just basically, she's elderly, and like they saw her coming. So it was like, oh, we're not going to go give you the level of service, and we're not going to go sell it. Like, your computer has no speaker, it doesn't have an inbuilt speaker in it.
Yeah.
We're not going to go sell. We won't sell you speakers for your computer. And it's all. And she's lost complete faith in that particular retailer because she wasn't taken care of. And I've gone fixed most of it. I'm still working on the other stuff because I've got to try and find speakers that I can get hold of and all that, because basically all the distributors are out of stock at the moment. But that little bit of thing, I was going and spending the time to actually explain to her, this is the problem, this is what it is. But the fact that the retailer just sort of said, oh, cool, there's a lovely little elderly lady coming in, wants a computer, yep, okay, give me the cash, go. But they didn't give that level of service that...
Terrible, isn't it?
Yeah, they didn't give that level of service that left a good taste. It's left an absolute bitter taste, and she now resents her choice.
And do you know what she'll do? She'll talk too. So
right now.
she will talk to all her old lady friends, and they'll all have computer issues, and then they'll all have kids. Who have, you'll get recommended off that. Like, the word of mouth thing, that's what I'm saying, the old school thing.
Yeah.
Again, in Tauranga,
I think also what you touched, Tim, on is the time, like we're always in a rush. And what we're saying here is not just customer service, but dedicate somebody a little bit of your day.
Yeah.
In a way of inquiring how they are, or
exactly.
if you need help, or what's going on in their life. And that gift of time basically is what really appreciated by the other people.
Yeah.
Especially now, while we have such a lack of connection, right? We are not connected to, like, we've only just come back to our local families, but what about our family members who are overseas, right? And you can't travel and see, even if it's just Australia, or like for me, the other side of the world, where you just simply don't know when are you going to reconnect. And that connection is what drives people these days, right? That's all they want. Is how do we reconnect with the people around us. So awesome. It is 4:00. Will and Sally, thank you so much for joining us.
I joined late.
Yeah, that's all right. I was like, today, because like everyone was late today, apart from the two participants who joined us, but I was like, where is everyone? Have I given everyone the wrong link?
Yeah, she was by herself crying in the corner, and no one is joining.
Can you tell me the same face? Will knows me, he'll call bullshit on that. But
yeah, no, that's bullshit. I bet just off screen she's got some sort of gin or alcoholic beverage there.
Sure, of course.
Yeah, good.
Yes,
good.
on Monday afternoon, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Now that you've said it in a recording, you owe me one on Monday.
It's a great way to start a week.
Yes, absolutely. But thank you so much for taking the time and sharing with us what you guys are doing, and also like the local campaigns, how we can get engaged. Will and Sally, you're going to get lots of emails from me about all the rewarding and good people around in Tauranga. I'm going to fill your inbox.
The more the better. Honestly, the amount of people that feel that if they were to email a radio station that will want some money to advertise something, and that the paper will want money to advertise their business, need to let that go. Because if you send me an email and you want me to give your business a quick plug on air, and it's a local business and you're doing good stuff, why would I not do that? That's legitimately what I'm here to do. So I hope people do get in touch, and I hope they get in touch with the Bay of Plenty Times. We're screaming out for as much local content as we can possibly get, and if that helps your business, then that's the whole point, right? And same with Sally, I'm sure, in terms of actually businesses getting in touch and how they can help in any way, because if it works for all of us, it works for all of us.
Yeah. Well, what's your email address?
Just will@thehits.co.nz. will@thehits.co.nz. Flick me an email. I'm happy to help as much as I can.
Awesome. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you, guys. Have a great Wednesday afternoon.
Thank you very much for inviting us.
Thanks, guys.
And I will see you guys in the whole community next week. And before we leave, Sally and Will, on the 25th 25th of June, we have Locals Supporting Locals party coming up. So we hope, I sent you guys the emails. I hope to see you there. Look
Okay.
at Walt's face. He's like, Bruce, I'm in.
Is it at a bar or?
We will
Work in progress, but there will be beverages.
I mean, drink responsibly. Drink responsibly.
Yeah.
Yep. Right. Bye.
Alrighty, guys. Thank you. See you later.
Thank you
Bye.
so much,
Bye.
guys. See ya. Bye.